So I was in Texas last week. I was traveling to what's called the Texas High School Coaches Association. It's a massive event where they serve, I don't even know, probably there's 30, 40,000 Texas high school coaches, right? Not just football, but in every sport. And so they host this massive event. Everything's bigger in Texas is not a joke. Their high school conventions are just monstrous, and they're a blast. I've spoken at them for a number of years, but this year I was going to serve as a moderator between Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at University of Oklahoma, and Chris Delcani, the athletic director at the University of Texas, talking about leadership in crisis, leadership in seasons of change. So it was a great event, always fun to learn from two of the best leaders in the industry. But our driver for the event was actually a former OU student athlete who lives in Los Angeles, whose dad, I think, puts on this event. So she happened to be in town, picked us up from the airport. And so we started having a lot of conversation. And I started asking her about her experience at OU, her experience as a student athlete, mental performance, because obviously this is, it's a passion of mine, it's an interest of mine, it's an area that we work in. We're not psychologists, but I think that actually works to our advantage in a lot of things. And so we're having conversation about how she operated, the mental tools that she used, and the mental side of the game. And she said, it was really interesting for me. She goes, I know that if I go to the gym, my body is going to be fit. Right? If I go to the weight room, I'm going to have the body I need, the muscles I need, the strength and flexibility, the agility I need to go perform on the soccer field. She goes, but it wasn't until I flipped that switch in my brain to realize, like, me going to talk to a counselor, me going to talk to a mental performance coach, me thinking about my mindset, me working on my mindset was going to the gym for my brain. She goes, that was me trying to get a fit mind, just like I had a fit body. So the question for us, like, how fit is your mind? Do you have a fit mind, or do you have a weak mind, right? We know that if we don't go to the gym, and again, none of this is just for athletes, it's for us as humans. If we don't go to the gym, our muscles weaken. They atrophy, that we're not going to be as strong as we used to be, as strong as we could be, maybe as strong as we should be. And so when we need those muscles, we are not going to have them. Right? Whether again, you're a soccer player, football player, baseball player, or just a human trying to get through life, the older we get, the more we start to feel like pain in muscles that we didn't know we had. I had to change out a bunch of light bulbs this weekend in our house. And so I'm like holding this light bulb up for what felt like several hours. It was probably 10 minutes to unscrew this thing, get the light bulb out, and then hold it up again to screw it back in. And the next day, I'm like, man, my shoulders hurt. And I had run the day before. I'm like, I don't think I was that tense like during my run. I realized I was like, oh, my shoulders hurt because I don't work out my shoulders. And I was holding a light up above my head for several minutes. And because I don't go to the gym and work out my shoulders aren't fit. So we don't go to the gym. We don't work out. Our body is not as fit as it could be or should be. But the same is true for our mind. And so when we get in adversity, when we get in difficult situations, when obstacles show up on our path, if we've not been training our mind, if we've not been preparing our mind, we're not as mentally ready for those moments as we could be. We're not as mentally ready for those moments as we should be because we're not fit. Our mental muscle is not strong. It's weak. And so doubt takes over. Fear takes over. Blaming takes over. Defensiveness takes over. We quit. We give up. Instead of saying, no, I've got this. Instead of hope, instead of resilience, instead of ownership, instead of connection, instead of clarity, because we didn't work on the muscle that is our mindset. And so I want to think about, like, how do we build a fit mind, right? It's fun to talk about. It's like, oh, that makes sense, right? If I'm talking about having a fit mind, that working on your mind is like going to the gym for your brain. You're like, yeah, Kevin, that makes sense. But then what? How do we do that? I think there are three ways that you can start to build a fit mind. Again, knowing and expecting that adversity is going to come. Right? We've talked about that 1,000 times at this point, that adversity is going to show up. It's part of the path. It is what it is, right? It is part of life. That doesn't mean we're being pessimists. That doesn't mean we're expecting the worst. It just means we have wisdom. We're aware, like, life is full of adverse moments. Life is full of obstacles that show up, especially if we're trying to get better. So the first thing I think that we have to do is actually prepare for it and decide who we will be in the midst of it. Right? To say, man, if my boss disagrees with this, here's how I'm going to respond. If you've got to go have a hard conversation with your boss, or maybe you're a leader, you have to have a hard conversation with someone on your team. Don't necessarily expect them to have a bad response, but prepare that they might have a bad response, and decide who you are going to be in the midst of it. Okay, if I bring this up and they disagree or they get defensive or they push back, here's who I'm going to be. Hey, if we go to this meeting and our numbers from senior management aren't what they should be, and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of questions, here's how I'm going to be. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to shrink back. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be prepared. Right? If you're an athlete, if the game's on the line, right? Here's how I'm going to respond in that moment. Right? I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to scurry. Like, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be focused. I'm going to know what the job is. I'm going to go execute on the job. So it's preparing for those moments. Think through your day. Look through your calendar. Say, where might adversity pop up? And what can I do to prepare for it, and decide who I'm going to be in the midst of it? So then when it hits, when that difficult conversation comes up, when that hard moment arises, you can think back, like, no, I expected this. I knew something like this would probably come up. Here's who I committed to being. I said I was going to be responsive. I said I was going to take ownership. I said I was going to be confident. I said I was going to be humble. I said I was going to be ready. I'm going to be those things because I knew this moment was coming and I was prepared for that moment. So number one, prepare for that adversity and decide who you're going to be in the midst of it. Number two is take mental reps. Like, actually go through reps in your mind of that conversation. I saw an interesting study recently where a coach took a basketball team. They were trying to work on their free throws, and they separated them into 3 groups. The first group was going to practice free throws for an hour a day. The second group was going to do nothing. They weren't going to practice free throws at all. The third group was going to mentally practice making free throws for an hour a day. Sit there and close their eyes and visualize themselves making free throws for an hour. After a month, they came back. The group that was in the gym for 1 hour a day practicing their free throws got 24% better. The group who did nothing didn't get better. The group who only did mental reps, 1 hour a day doing mental reps, got 23% better, because your mind doesn't know the difference between like thinking something and actually experiencing it. And so because they were visualizing being in that moment, visualizing doing those reps, visualizing making those shots, they actually got better in that moment. And so take reps mentally for hard moments that you're going to be a part of. If you're going out for a run, you can visualize, man, I know at some point it's going to be hard. I'm going to want to quit. So I'm going to visualize myself powering through the run. I'm going to visualize myself finding the inner strength, taking the next step, being successful in the meeting, making the big shot, having the hard conversation, closing the deal, right? Visualize yourself in those moments being successful. I know that can sound like just a little weird, but visualize yourself being successful. Now, that's a huge thing for athletes all the time, right? They want you to visualize it, being in the moment, doing the thing that you're prepared to do, hitting the right shot, making the right move. Visualize yourself having success. That will give you a better chance to actually emulate those behaviors in the moment. And the last thing, we've talked about this before, but it's just to talk to yourself all throughout the day. Again, whether it's, setting up reminders on your calendar, like once an hour, every hour. Hey, you're great. Hey, you're prepared. Hey, you've got what it takes. Hey, you're stronger than you think. Hey, you are an overcomer. Hey, you're made for this moment. Whatever it is, right? Call yourself up consistently throughout the day. Because otherwise, if we don't do those things, we're letting negative thoughts seep in. But every strong word, every kind word, every mental rep that you're taking, right? Every time you're calling yourself up, you're just building a foundation. You're just stacking confidence. You're stacking muscles. You're stacking mental toughness, so that when those moments hit, you actually have a foundation to fall back on that will power you through and hold you up, not a foundation that'll crumble. When you get in those hard moments, if you've not talked to yourself, if you've not called yourself up, you get in those moments and negativity creeps in, and doubt creeps in, and fear creeps in, and insecurity creeps in, and you don't have that foundation, and you crumble under adversity. You crumble under the weight of the obstacle. But when you've called yourself up, you've reminded yourself that you do have what it takes. You've reminded yourself that you are strong. And every time you do that, you are building those mental muscles. So we have to have a fit mind, right? We can't hope for it. We can't expect it. We have to work for it. And sometimes it's hard, right? And I think when we're in the midst of it, It can seem overwhelming because life may be hard, maybe a difficult season at work, maybe a difficult season at home, maybe the economy is impacting your organization, maybe it's your health, whatever it may be. But when you feel overwhelmed by your situation, it's about remembering your destination. I know it's hard now, but here's why I'm doing this. I know it's hard to run a mile now, but I'm trying to run a marathon. It's not about the difficulty of this moment. It's about what I'm running toward. It's about that vision that I'm pursuing. So in the midst of a difficult situation, back up and remember your destination. Remember your why. Now, on the flip side, sometimes the destination can feel overwhelming, right? Maybe you're trying to lose weight. It's like, man, I'm never going to lose 30 pounds. I'm trying to get past one. All I got to do is focus on today's situation. There's a balance there, right? Of the present and the future, of what you need in the moment and where you're trying to get to. So sometimes it's about focusing on your situation. Sometimes it's about focusing on your destination and having the wisdom in that moment to realize where you need to focus in order to renew your energy, renew your perspective, and take the next step. But we have to be a people who are mentally fit, who are mentally strong, who are mentally tough. And that requires that we do the reps because again, life is going to come at us. And if you look around, we're surrounded by a lot of people who are not mentally fit. Every little thing makes them angry, makes them offended, makes them upset, makes them afraid. Right? Every little thing is derailing them from their path, derailing them from their purpose, distracting them from what they actually need to do. And the only way to counter that is for us to be mentally fit, to be mentally strong, to be mentally tough, and then take what we've learned, take what we've done, and help people who are not. Say, hey, I was you once. I remember what that was like. It was frustrating. I was bitter. It was overwhelming. There's a better way. Let me show you what I've done to build mental strength, to become mentally fit so that I can take on the challenges of each day. Tracy, what do you think? Thoughts, questions?
Not really any questions, but this is so good. We've missed you. Goodness, you've kind of had it all like bottled up. No, I've been taking flying lessons very slowly, by the way. I haven't had a lesson in over a month. It's like 105 degrees pretty much every day here. And a couple of our instructor planes are down. But one of my instructors early on said, okay, as you're learning, I want you to go home and I want you to sit in a chair and I want you to visualize what we've been working on. So like that day we were working on taking off. So it's like, okay, you need to think about the instruments in front of you, put your seatbelt on, do all the list of things you go through, pulling back on the yoke, all of the things. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting, but it really does help. So you learn something, a concept, you sit in the chair, you do it. And it makes you really stop and go through the steps of of flying. And it's the same idea. I think that we're so busy. We just flip from here to there. And it's like, no, time to focus. I love this.
Yeah. I think and it seems weird, right? Like there's no ways me sitting in my living room is going to make me a better pilot. It will. Because you know what the inside of a cockpit looks like. Even if you've not done it 1,000 times, you know enough. Like, you know what it looks like, you know what you're supposed to be doing. And then when you get in there, you're like, this is familiar. I've been here before. Whether you've been practicing a lot or not, like if you were to fully take a month off versus take, 1 hour a week or an hour every 3 days, right? To sit and think through what you'd be doing, you'd get back in the cockpit in a month and be fresh. Like, okay, I've been ready for this. It wouldn't be just a month off. If you took that full month off, you'd be rusty. Wait, where's it's been a while, and it's a weird thing, but I think just anticipating the moment so that we can decide how we're going to respond and be ready in that moment. Anthony, what do we got here? The right mental rep is better than overthinking. Yes, that's it. Right. Because there's that balance. You overthink it and you go through every possible scenario and then you just get paralyzed by that. It's like, nope, visualize a successful scenario. Visualize you at your best in that moment, not trying to predict every little thing that could possibly go. What could they say? What could they say? What about this? What about this? Gets overwhelming, right? Simplify it, right? Anytime we make things too complex, it gets overwhelming. Simplify how you would respond in a situation. Simplify how you think that situation could go. And I would say, in terms of thinking through scenarios, like limit it to 3. 3 is probably something we could handle. We keep building on that, and then it's overwhelming. But the bigger piece is, it doesn't really matter what someone says in a meeting. It's just imagining someone disagreeing. Imagine someone agreeing. Imagine someone challenging you. Imagine the misunderstanding. Whatever it is, here's how I'm going to be if this doesn't go as I hope it goes? I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be secure. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be measured. I'm going to answer the questions clearly. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to get overly emotional. And so picturing yourself in those moments, being prepared. So taking the right mental reps, right? Same thing like with a runner. They're visualizing themselves on the starting block, visualizing going around the turn. Well, if they're trying to visualize, what about this runner? What about lane 7? What in lane 6? What about this? What about the overwhelming, right? Simplify it and know the race that you're about to run.
Love it. Kevin, thank you. Really good stuff. Love it. Okay. Well, there's no questions coming, just comments of thank you.
People are just they're overwhelmed. I get it. I blew your guys' mind on a Monday. It happens.
You know how it goes. Wow. Well, all of you, thank you. We had so many just people from all over that joined us today. By the way, Dr. Brassfield, she said yes on the name. So good job.
Nailed it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you all, I hope, next time. Sometimes, and I hate that sometimes we have to cancel last minute, but there are times when, Kevin gets called out to a client or something. So we'll keep it on Mondays as long as we can. But if you'll just keep going to Giant TV and look up there at the date and time, we'll try and keep you informed on when we're here. So
next week should be good.
Should be good. Okay. Well, we hope to see all of you next Monday. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good one.